Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you LoveChoice for the Nintendo Switch. This is a collection of 3 short stories that revolve around a romantic relationship, and your objective is to make different choices that'll affect the outcome of the relationship. You play as a sort of PC simulator where you use your control stick to move a mouse, and you use that mouse to select and point at different things to affect the outcome. You'll occasionally use the other buttons, like the right stick to scroll down if there's a lot of messages, or the L and R buttons to switch between items, but overall it's a pretty minimalistic approach. It's for the most part a visual novel that has light interaction sequences. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to be spoiling a little bit of the first game because that's just the nature of reviews that have footage, but because there's 3 games, you ought to have a relatively spoiler-free time with this review. There's not really a whole lot to say about how to play it, as it's usually pretty self-evident by the mouse cursor that you need to click on things. However, if you want to get the best ending, you'll have to try to think outside the box. And I really don't want to say how that's possible, but just selecting from the menu isn't going to get you anywhere. That's actually going to get you the worst ending. So if you're the type that is very black and white and you're thinking and you can't think of a flexible alternative, you're probably not going to have a good time with LoveChoice. One thing that I really like about this game is that it has good music most of the time. For 99% of the game, you hear this pretty lovely piano in the background. Unfortunately, in the first game, there is this really obnoxious mini-game where you have to select the good restaurants amid a bunch of bad. And the music just all of a sudden becomes this really annoying low-budget synth. And I start to wonder, was this made by a different developer? Like, it doesn't even seem to affect the outcome from what I've observed. It seems like it's just there so that the game developers can say, hey, visual novels aren't boring. See, we've got these gameplay sections. So, I don't know. I feel like that part was pretty tacked on, but everything else works really well. Sometimes the stories rely a little bit too much on your imagination, but I think it does a better job than most love stories at actually presenting conflicts that could happen. Like if you see a mess on the ground, you're gonna say, yeah, couples would fight about if one person is messy and the other is a neat freak. That's a realistic problem. So, overall, I really liked when LoveChoice presented puzzles that involved me thinking outside the box. It let me go beyond the conventions of what I'm used to in a visual novel, and I really appreciate games giving me that ability to really stretch my brain muscle. I wish that the stories were a little bit more involved, but I also think that would take away from the minimalistic charm. One thing that you might have a little bit of trouble with is that this was developed by Ratalaika Games, who is notorious for not knowing how to highlight their options. Granted, most of the time when you're actually playing the games, you do use the mouse, which makes it a lot easier, but when you're in the menus, like trying to mix up the music and the sound effects, sometimes it's hard to tell what you're actually highlighting because you're using the control stick, but that's just a problem that all of their games have. Nicole did that, other games that I didn't bother review did that, and I almost boycotted this game because of it. Thankfully, I persevered, and there were a couple of neat lessons to be had. Overall, I got the impression that this game is all about presenting couples that have actually succeeded in real life and just trimming it down to a short narrative. So with that, I think that this game is pretty fun. It's cheap. I only paid a little over $2 for it. It's nice and short, even if you put all the stories together. It should probably take you no longer than 2 hours to get through it, even if you get the multiple endings. But those 2 hours are relatively fun, except for that annoying minigame and a certain part in the third game that made me think my game was broken. But I think the game succeeds more than it stumbles. And I think if you can put up with the handful of sections that are kind of tacky, then you should have a really good time here. Especially if you get it on sale like I did, then the price is a steal. You might as well give it a try. If you're not a fan of visual novels, you might not like this very much as the gameplay is very minimalistic. But if you just want a decent story, not mind-blowing, but decently heartwarming, then you could certainly do a lot worse. I think this is a neat stepping forward point for Radalaika, and I hope that they learn from this, and maybe in the next game they'll start to fix their color mixing options. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comment section if I missed anything or if you think this was too short. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and it's always good to be a listener, not an overtalker. Bye!